Well, I suppose, look, one thing we found out about the farming scene, there's always going to be challenges. You're no sooner out of one that you're into another one. So I suppose at the moment, again, 25, a big push was to get the derogation approved. So again, that has happened this morning. So again, we're I suppose glad that has happened, because farmers have made huge investments over the last number of years, and to say that there's a cut-off point on the 1st of January that they may not have this, sure, I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, so there needs to be further, planning ahead, that farmers have the opportunity that when big decisions are coming, that, we should be actually planning now for the next 2028 and saying, what is the decision then? We know it's about water quality. We know that water quality has to improve. We know, I suppose, from an EU level that we're probably fourth best, but, and I suppose going to school out of 28 or 29, if you were told you were fourth best, you might be quite pleased with that. But I suppose, we have to have ambition, and we have to say, we need to be top of the class.
And I suppose just looking at that, the fact that it is just until 2028, is there even a small bit of disappointment, as much as it is in place for the next couple of years, that there isn't a more of a long-term plan in place?
Yeah, we need that long-term plan in place. I mean, we need viable farms, and I mean, again, and we can deal with it later. And Mercusor, I mean, a huge issue at the moment. But from the dairying space, like, I mean, when you have put in huge investment, you have, all of these things put in place, and then you find that you have to change your whole system at very short notice. It's totally unacceptable. We need to be farmers, when they do make large investments on their farms, that they have a viable prospect or a viable plan going forward. And you can't have this bit meal team all the time, 2 or 3 years, and then it's all up in the air. Now we need to be planning for 28 going forward.
And then on that, in terms of making farming more viable, how are farmers in general contending with rising costs in terms of operational costs?
Well, I suppose, look, there's always going to be operational costs, and I suppose even from an Ireland perspective, I mean, wages are high here. We have a high minimum wage, so we know that costs in terms of that are high. We also have high costs in terms of how we do our business. I mean, in terms of medicines was a huge issue. Now you need to get prescriptions and veterinary, and that's about food quality. And food quality is so important. And then we see the contradictory statement of what's happening at the moment, a Mercusor, a trade deal that will allow Brazilian beef particularly to come into this country, undermine the product here. IFA have gone out to Brazil there in the last month or so. They've discovered that you can buy all of these medicines, over the counter, the same as you'd buy sweets or cans or taser. But yet, we have a high standard here. But the consequences on human health, that's why we have these rules in place. And the consequences are that, if you go into hospital, you have a disease, we need these antibiotics to be used on humans, and we don't want to be building up the resistance with the, that you've got, through eating this type of meat. Again, we've been told that from an EU perspective, that that there is safeguards in place in terms of this, but yet we found that hormones has been coming in Brazilian beef here. We haven't been using hormones in this country for over 30 years because we have discovered that they were cancerogenic. So why? I mean, when we see the safeguards and say everything, and they want, obviously we know the EU wants to sell particularly German cars out there, and they want to bring in that they feel the balances they bring in beef, but it has to be of our standards. It has to be, we have to be guaranteed that they are hormone proof, and we found recently that they have not, and that we found that a beef that came into Italy, and it was consumed before they were able to say, oh, by the way, we now know there was hormones in that beef, and that's just not good enough. And I mean, that's why we do have high costs of production here. That's why we do have the level of production here. And, farming is about food production. It's about feeding, but it's also about guaranteeing that food that we consume and that the consumer buys is of top quality.
Yeah, I suppose just finally looking ahead into 2026 as well, you still have that uncertainty hanging over, I suppose, around the Mercusor deal. I suppose if it does come to pass for a finish, farmers will need some supports, and do they need supports elsewhere as well, even before the deal, if it was to come to pass?
Well, I suppose, being honest about it, it's difficult for me to comprehend what that would mean, even from a Clare perspective, because where else will you find a business in every parish, in every town's land, in every parish in County Clare? So what is the knock-on effect of that? Well, I mean, if there's no beef, I mean, the local stores is in trouble. The local pub is in trouble. The post office won't be used. The schools, there won't be as many kids around. It has a complete, total knock-on right throughout the whole of community. And, we've produced about 70,000 beef cows in County Clare. I mean, we're noted in County Clare as having one of these top quality beef of anywhere, and that's why, even from the east of the country, they come and buy our weanlings and our stock here. And yes, in the last 12 months, prices have improved, and rightly so. We're probably getting paid now, which I never in my lifetime got paid for my beef, and was so disappointed back along the years of while we were always skimping and scraping. But now we are getting a reasonable price for our beef, and now we see then of a stroke of a pen that Mercusor and could destroy all of that. But it is about this rural development and having our communities in each town and each fair, viable, prosperous. And if we cannot generate incomes for those farmers, equal to everybody else, then they won't be there. And we'll find that their children and even some of those potential young farmers will be in Australia. And that's not a position we want to see ourselves in. We want our young farmers to be prosperous. We want them to have an equal living, and we want them to have their families and grow up in our rural towns and villages throughout Clare. And that'll feed into our local shops, our local community groups, and even our local GA groups, and that's what what we're so proud of.
Yeah, I suppose just to put a bow on it, I suppose you're kind of looking, if you're in these communities that are being supported by farmers and the food they produce, and although you might save if you're buying this imported beef that's a small bit cheaper, if there is so much support that have to be given out to farmers, that'll be taxpayers' money that you're going to be spending extra money, I suppose, keeping the industry alive in the long run.
No, absolutely. But I suppose the big one is about cost to your own health. I mean, if you're going to be taking in and taking in beef with all of these not vaccine, but antibiotics in them, I mean, what are the consequences then, if you're misfortunate and you have an ailment and you have to go to hospital and you find that because you have consumed this meat, because you have taken in these hormones, now you've actually risked your own health. And sure, look, any of us know that health is number one. It doesn't matter how much money or whatever you have. If you haven't your health, you've nothing. And that's why it's so important that, we have food quality, that we have traceability, we have all of these aspects in our food. And it's important to everybody. It's not just about farmers, but it's important to every individual, that they have the confidence in the food they're in and that it is of the highest standard.